him in the upcoming mayoral elections. Adams, who ended his re-election bid last month amid corruption allegations, appeared alongside Cuomo at a press briefing and called him the right person for the fight for the family of New York. Let's in fact listen in.
For the family of New York. That's why I'm here today, to endorse Andrew Cuomo to be part of this fight. And I'm going to give him my all these next few days. Well, you criticized Andrew and you called him names. You know what? And he called me names. But you know what? Now it's time to fight for the family. And I'm going to fight for the family with Andrew Cuomo as the next mayor of the city of New York.
Cuomo, who is running as an independent candidate, praised Adams for putting aside political differences and urged voters to reject what he described as divisive politics. The endorsement marks a significant turn in the race, with Cuomo now emerging as a key contender ahead of the November vote. Listen in.
And we all have to do our best to make sure that Zoran does not become the next mayor. And the mayor put his own personal ambition and ego aside to make sure he's doing everything he can to make sure that New York remains New York. New Yorkers vote, I win. New Yorkers vote, I win. New Yorkers reject this socialism, reject division. If New Yorkers vote, I win. What we want to do is just make sure New Yorkers know how important this election is and what's at stake, and get New Yorkers up and out to vote. That's it.
Mr. Raymond Vickery, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, joins us from Washington. Mr. Vickery, I have to begin by understanding, from your perspective, what's really at stake as far as these elections are concerned?
Well, thanks very much for having me. I think that what's at stake is really the direction of the Democratic Party and opposition to President Trump. The candidacy of Mamdani has been characterized as far left and socialistic, and to some extent there are elements in that in terms of housing, in terms of grocery stores, in terms of what happens with the system of public transportation. And what's really happening here is whether or not the Democratic Party is going to move sharply to the left, and Cuomo, I think, does not want to see that. Adams is really now in the pocket of President Trump, and he doesn't want to see that either. I think that this is a sign that we still have a healthy democracy, at least in New York City, and the election will take place in a fair and equitable manner. You can't say that for the rest of the nation, but that is the assessment here for New York City.
At the same time, Mr. Vickery, what do you make of this latest endorsement by Eric Adams, who has now endorsed former Governor Andrew Cuomo after initially dismissing him?
I think it's pure politics. I think that it's not really based upon any principles. It's a question of Adams, who had been under pressure for both his relations with President Trump, his willingness to do his bidding on immigration, as well as his own corruption problems, simply seeing a political way to remain relevant. So it's a messy process. But it's one that you come to expect in the politics of New York City.
All right, Mr. Vickery, stay on with us as we Shift our focus to more news from the United States of America. The U.S. Senate has rejected two competing bills aimed at paying federal workers during the ongoing government shutdown, which is now stretched into its 23rd day. Both Republicans and Democrats have blocked each other's proposals, as many federal employees are now set to miss their first full paycheck this week. Now, the Republican-backed bill was introduced by Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, and it sought to guarantee pay for federal workers who continue to report for duty during shutdowns. However, it failed to reach the 60-vote threshold needed to advance, with only 3 Democrats breaking ranks to support it. Meanwhile, Democrats have argued that the Republican bill would give the president excessive authority to decide which workers receive pay. In response, they've proposed 2 countermeasures to cover all federal employees, including those furloughed, neither of which received a vote. The government deadlock began earlier this month, remember, after lawmakers failed to agree on a new federal budget. As a result, around 7 lakh government workers have been furloughed, while many others continue working without pay. In the midst of the stalemate, U.S. President Donald Trump has announced that a wealthy private donor has contributed $130 million to the U.S. government to help cover possible shortfalls in military salaries. Trump has also praised the donor as a patriot, but did not disclose his name. Additionally, Trump also earlier signed an executive order directing the Pentagon to repurpose unused research funds to cover salaries, which is a move that budget experts have described as legally questionable. Mr. Raymond Vickery, former U.S. Assistant Secretary of Commerce, joins us from Washington. Mr. Vickery, I have to firstly ask you, sir, what are the constitutional and perhaps other implications of the U.S. president using private donations and repurposed research funds to pay military salaries?
Well, I think unlike the assessment in regard to what's happening in New York City politics as being pro-democracy, this shows a real breakdown in terms of our constitutional form of government in the United States. For over 200 or almost 250 years, we have had a system of checks and balances in which the purse strings, according to the Constitution of the federal government, are in the Congress. The Congress has not stepped up to exercise its constitutional checks and balances mandate, and therefore what's happening here is that the executive branch under President Trump is trying to circumvent the ordinary procedure by going to private donors. And this has really very, very serious consequences for democracy. If you have wealthy individuals who are supplying the wherewithal, the constitutional checks and balances, control of the purse, which are in our Constitution and have served us very well, are circumvented. So the whole government shutdown is really a desperation move, if you will, to try to get Congress to stand up, the legislative branch, as is constitutionally mandated, to provide a check on the executive power. The immediate issue, of course, is one of the affordable health care and whether or not you're going to have some continuation of the subsidies which have enabled people to continue to have health insurance. And without them, without these subsidies, millions will lose their health care coverage. But it's really just symptomatic of the overall problem, and that is one of adherence to constitutional norms which have served this country. You know, democracy can't be just one vote, one person, one time. It has to be in an institutional way in which minority rights are protected. And unfortunately, President Trump and the executive branch have not seen fit to follow the precedents